yourself first. If being single makes you feel broken or behind, don't skip this. One psychological shift in this video can change how you experience love and yourself. One, let me start by saying something very important. As a relationship psychologist who has worked with thousands of people, feeling bad about being single isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's actually a very normal psychological response in a world that constantly sells the idea that happiness equals being in a relationship. From movies to social media to family comments, you're surrounded by messages that say being chosen equals being worthy. So when you're single, your brain doesn't just register your relationship status. It turns it into a story about your value, and that's where the pain starts. And not from being single itself, but from the meaning you attach to it. When you feel that heavy sadness, loneliness, or even shame, it's usually because your mind is telling you a very harsh narrative. Everyone else is moving forward, expect me. This video is about stopping that narrative, not by lying to yourself, but by understanding what's really happening in your mind and learning how to respond differently. Two, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is trying to fix the feeling of being single by rushing into dating situationships or emotionally unavailable relationships. Psychologically, this makes sense. When something hurts, we want it to stop. But here's the truth: if being single makes you feel worthless, a relationship won't suddenly make you feel valuable. It might distract you for a while, but the same insecurity will show up later as jealousy, anxiety, or fear of abandonment. As a therapist, I can tell you that many of the most unhappy people I work with are single. They're in relationships where they feel unseen and unsafe. So the real question isn't how do I stop being single, but why does being single hurt my sense of self so much? That's a much more powerful question because it puts the control back in your hands instead of in someone else's attention. Three, let's talk about loneliness because being single and being lonely aren't the same thing, but society treats them like they are. You can be single and deeply connected to life, friends, a purpose, and yourself, and you can be in a relationship and feel completely alone. Loneliness isn't about the absence of a partner, it's about the absence of emotional connection. When you feel bad about being single, ask yourself honestly, what am I actually missing right now? It's intimacy, validation, touch, feeling chosen. When you get specific, you stop making being single the enemy and start identifying real human needs. And here's the key: psychological shift needs are solvable. Identities aren't. I need more emotional closeness is workable. I'm single, therefore I'm behind in life is a dead end. And this distinction alone can change how heavy singlehood feels. For another reason being single feels so painful is comparison, and comparison is one of the most destructive habits for mental health. Your brain is constantly scanning friends getting married, people posting couple photos, engagement anniversaries. What you are seeing is a highlight reel and not the full picture. As a psychologist, I can tell you something most people don't talk about. Many relationships you envy are emotionally fragile behind closed doors, but your brain doesn't have that. It just counts numbers and milestones and decide you are late. The problem is there's no universal timeline for love. Psychological development, emotional readiness, and relationship success don't follow age or social deadlines. When you analyze someone else's timeline, you abandon your own pace, and that creates anxiety, not motivation. 5. So, how do you actually stop feeling so bad about being single? The first step is not positive thinking, it's emotional honesty. Stop telling yourself you shouldn't feel this way. Shame only deepens pain. Instead, say being single is triggering something in me and I want to understand it. When you approach your feelings with curiosity instead of judgment, your nervous system relaxes. You move out of survival mode. From there, you can start building a life where a relationship is a desire, not a rescue mission. And paradoxically, this is the psychological state where healthy love is most likely to find you. Not because you're chasing it, but because you're no longer asking it to fix you. If this is heading a little too close, pause for 1 second, like the video, subscribe, and stay till the end. The next part is where everything clicks. Sex. A lot of people believe that being single means they are failing at life, but this belief comes from a misunderstanding of what success actually is. Psychology speaking, success isn't about checking boxes like relationship by this age or marriage by that milestone. Real success is emotional stability, self-awareness, and the ability to form healthy bonds. When you are single, you have a rare opportunity to develop these skills without constantly reacting to someone else's emotions. Most people skip this phase and then wonder why their relationships feel exhausting or unstable. Being single isn't a pause in life, it's an active stage of emotional development. If you don't use this stage intentionally, you'll repeat the same patterns later, just with another person involved. 7. And let's be honest about something uncomfortable. Many people don't miss love when they're single, they miss distraction. Being alone forces you to sit with your thoughts, insecurities, and unresolved emotional wounds. A relationship can temporarily quiet that inner noise, but it doesn't heal it. That's why some people jump from one relationship to another without ever feeling satisfied. As a therapist, I often see clients who are terrified of being single, not because they want connection, but because a silence exposes a parts of themselves they don't want to face. When you learn to tolerate that discomfort instead of running from it, you gain emotional strength, and emotional strength is far more attractive and valuable than desperation for connection. 8. Another reason being single hurts us so much is because many people tie their identity to being wanted. From a psychological perspective, this creates conditional self-worth. You feel good about yourself only when someone chooses you, takes you, or commits to you. The moment that external validation disappears, your self-esteem collapses. That's not love, that's emotional dependency. Healthy self-worth comes from internal consistency, not external approval. When you're single, you get a clear mirror showing you where your self-worth is coming from. Instead of seeing that as a proof you're lacking, see it as data information you can actually work with and change. 9. Let's talk about fear, specifically the fear of ending up alone. This fear is deeply rooted in our nervous system. Humans are wired for connection, so your brain treats long-term loneliness as a threat. But here's the cognitive distortion. Your brain confuses signal right now with alone forever. Those aren't the same thing. When anxiety takes over, your mind jumps to worst case scenarios and presents them as facts. As a psychologist, I teach clients to challenge this by grounding themselves in reality. Ask yourself, what evidence do I actually have that this is permanent? Most of the time, the fear is loud, but the proof is weak. 10. Being single can also trigger grief for the life you imagined you'd have by now. This is something people rarely talk about, but it's incredibly common. You might be grieving a timeline, a version of yourself, or relationship that never happened. And grief needs space and not separation. When you deny this sadness and force yourself to stay positive, it doesn't disappear, it just turns into bitterness or numbness. Allowing yourself to grieve doesn't mean giving up on love. It means making peace with the person so you don't carry unresolved pain into the future. 11. One practical way to stop feeling so bad about being single is to shift your focus from status to structure. Instead of asking, why am I still single? Ask, how is my life structured right now? Do you have routines that support your mental health? Do you experience joy, challenge, rest, and connection regularly? Relationships don't magically fix an unbalanced life. They amplify where there is already there. When your life feels empty, a partner becomes a solution. When your life feels full, a partner becomes a bonus. The difference changes everything. 12. Many people believe that once they're in a relationship, their anxiety will disappear. But clinically speaking, anxiety doesn't vanish. It relocates. If you don't work on it while you're single, it will show up as overthinking texts, fear of abandonment, or constant reassurance seeking. Being single gives you the chance to develop emotional regulation skills, calming your nervous system, setting boundaries, tolerating uncertainty. These are relationship skills. Even though you're practicing them alone, this is not a wasted time, it's preparation. 13. Let's address the myth that everyone else is happier in a relationship. Happiness is not a relationship outcome, it's a psychological state influenced by mindset, emotional health, and expectations. I work with couples who are deeply unhappy but stay together because being single feels scarier and I work with single individuals who are emotionally grounded and fulfilled. Relationship status is visible, emotional health isn't. Stop comparing your internal world to someone else's external image. That comparison will always be unfair and inaccurate. 14. If you wanna stop feeling ashamed of being single, you have to stop treating it like a flaw. Shame thrives on secrecy and self-blame. At the moment you normalize your experience, not romantically but realistically, its power weaknesses. You're not behind, you're not broken. You're in a phase that demands self-awareness, not a self-criticism. And when you speak to yourself the way a compassionate professional would, instead of an inner critic, your emotional baseline starts to stabilize. 15. Remember this, being single isn't something you enjoy until real life begins. This is real life. The way you treat yourself now sets the tone for every relationship you'll have later. If you learn to respect your time, your emotions, and your boundaries while single, you'll naturally choose healthier partners, and that's the ultimate goal, not just being in a relationship but being the right one. What's the hardest part about being single for you right now? 16. Being single often exposes how much of your happiness you outsource to the future. Many people tell themselves, I feel calm when I'm in a relationship, or life will start when I'm loved. Psychology, this is a dangerous pattern because it trains your brain to delay satisfaction. Your nervous system stays in a constant state of waiting. Over time, this creates chronic dissatisfaction even when good things are happening. Learning to feel grounded now doesn't kill your desire for love. It actually makes that desire healthier. You stop chasing love to escape discomfort and start choosing it because it adds value. 17. One of the most underrated skills you can build while single is emotional self-soothing. When you're upset, lonely, or anxious, who takes care of you? If the answer is a future partner, that's a problem. Adults who rely entirely on others for emotional regulation often struggle in relationships. Being single gives you daily practice in calming yourself, understanding your triggers, and meeting your emotional needs without panic. This skill alone can prevent years of unhealthy attachment patterns. Later on, 18. Let's talk about dating apps for a moment. Many single people feel worse because dating has become transactional. Swipes, matches, ghosting, all of it can slowly erode your self-esteem. If you're not careful, the problem isn't that you're undesirable. The problem is that these systems aren't designed to support human psychology. They reward novelty, not depth. If dating makes you feel disposable, it's not a personal failure, it's a structural issue. Taking breaks from dating isn't giving up, it's emotional hygiene. 19. Another painful belief is that being single means you're too much or not enough. This black and white thinking is common in people who internalize a rejection, but compatibility isn't a measure of worth. Two good people can be wrong for each other. When you personalize every failed connection, you slowly build a distorted self-image. A healthy mindset is that Yes, relationships are filters and not evaluations. Each ending narrows the path towards something more aligned, even if it doesn't feel that way emotionally. 20 being single also forces you to confront boredom, and boredom is deeply misunderstood. Many people think boredom means life is empty, but psychology boredom is an invitation to build meaning. When your time isn't filled by a partner, you're left with choices, growth, creativity, stagnation, or distraction. What you repeatedly choose during boredom shapes your identity. This is why some people live a singlehood stronger and others leave it more insecure. The difference isn't luck, it's intention. 21. If you constantly think I'm single because something is wrong with me, pause. That belief usually comes from earlier emotional wounds and not present reality. Childhood experiences, past breakup, or inconsistent love can all plant this narrative. Being single doesn't create the wound, it reveals it, and a revealed wound can be healed. Ignored wounds get projected onto future partners. This is why self-work during a singlehood isn't optional. If you want a healthy relationship later, 22, let's normalize this truth. Some days being single will still hurt. Healing doesn't mean emotional numbness. It means you no longer panic about the feeling. You don't spiral, catastrophize, or attack yourself for it. You acknowledge the sadness, take care of yourself, and keep living. Emotional maturity isn't about eliminating pain, it's about responding to it wisely. That's a skill most people never learn because they stay busy escaping it. 23. One powerful shift is to stop asking, when will someone choose me? And start asking, who am I becoming? Relationships don't just happen to you, they meet you where you are. The emotional habits you build and now determine the quality of love you'll tolerate later. When you raise your internal standards, your external options change naturally, not instantly, but inevitably. 24. Being single teaches discernment. You learn what drains you, what excites you, what feels safe, and what feels familiar but unhealthy. Without this clarity, people often confuse intensity with intimacy. They chase emotional highs and call it chemistry. Singlehood gives you a space to unlearn those patterns and recognize calm, secure connection when it finally appears, even if it feels unfamiliar at first. Don't forget to subscribe to continue this journey and receive more tips. 25. Many people secretly worry that the longer they stay single, the harder it will become to adjust to a relationship later. Psychologically, this fear is understandable but inaccurate. The real issue isn't time spent alone, but what you do with that time. If you spend your single years avoiding emotions, numbing yourself, or living on autopilot, then yes, intimacy will feel difficult later. But if you use this time to understand your emotional patterns, your triggers, and your boundaries, you actually become more capable of healthy connection. Emotional flexibility doesn't come from being a partner, it comes from self-awareness. Being single doesn't make you too independent to love, it simply reveals whether you've learned how to share yourself without losing yourself. 26. Another hidden struggle of being single is the pressure to constantly justify your life. Society suddenly asks you to explain why you're not partnered, as if a singlehood needs an excuse. Over time, this creates internalized defensiveness. You start explaining your choices even when no one asks. This middle habit quietly drains your self-esteem. From a psychological standpoint, constantly defending your life past keeps your nervous system in a low-level stress response. You begin to feel like you're doing something wrong by simply existing as you are. Letting go of this need to explain yourself isn't arrogance, it's emotional maturity. You don't need a permission to live your life at your own pace. 27, being single also brings up a very uncomfortable truth. No one is coming to save you from yourself. In relationship, it's easy to outsource responsibility for happiness, motivation, even meaning. Singlehood removes that illusion. This can feel scary, but it's also deeply empowering. When you realize that your emotional well-being is primarily your responsibility, you stop waiting and start building. You develop resilience, problem solving skills, and internal stability. These qualities don't just make you a better partner someday, they make your life more solid right now. Avoiding this lesson only delays growth. Facing it changes how you relate to everything. 28, a lot of emotional pain around being single comes from idealizing relationships. Many people imagine love as a permanent emotional high, a solution to loneliness, or a guarantee of security. But clinically speaking, relationships amplify your existing emotional habits. If you struggle with self-doubt while you're single, you'll struggle with it in a relationship just with more at stake. Understanding this helps you stop romanticizing partnership and start respecting it. Love isn't an escape from inner work. It's a context where inner work becomes unavoidable. A singlehood gives you the rare chance to do that work without collateral damage. 29. Let's talk about urgency. As people get older, the pressure to figure it out increases. This urgency often pushes people into mismatched relationships, and not because they feel aligned, but because they feel scared. Fear-driven choices rarely lead to long-term satisfaction. From a psychological lens, urgency narrows perception. You stop asking, is this healthy? And start asking, will this last? Those are very different questions. Learning to tolerate uncertainty while a signal protects you from settling out of fear later. Patience here isn't passive, it's protective. 30. Being single also reshapes how you experience time. Without a partner anchoring your schedule, you become more aware of how you spend your days. This awareness can be uncomfortable, especially if your life lacks structure or meaning, but discomfort isn't the enemy. Avoidance is. When you consciously design your days with intention, your sense of fulfillment increases regardless of relationship status. Psychological well-being comes from alignment between values and actions, not from romantic attachment. A partner may share your life, but they can't organize it for you. 31. Another overlooked benefit of being single is emotional discernment, and you start noticing patterns. What types of people you are drawn to, what dynamics feel familiar, and which ones exhaust you. Without the intensity of a relationship clouding your judgment, you can reflect more clearly. This reflection is crucial. Many people repeat the same relationship mistakes not because they're unlucky, but because they never pause long enough to understand their patterns. A signalhood creates that pause. What you learn here determines what you tolerate later. 32. It's important to understand that feeling lonely while single doesn't mean you're failing at independence. Humans are wired for connection. Loneliness is a single, not a verdict. The mistake is assuming that the only solution to loneliness is a romantic partner. Different shapes meaningful work, creative expression, and community all regulate the nervous system. When you diversify your sources of connection, romantic love becomes one part of a full life, not the sole pillar holding everything up. That balance makes future relationships healthier and less pressured. 33. At some point, many single people realize that their biggest fear isn't being alone, it's being unwanted. This fear often traces back to earlier experiences of emotional neglect or inconsistent love. Being a single doesn't create this fear, it activates it. But activation isn't destruction, it's an opportunity. When you address the root of that fear, you stop seeking relationships as a proof of worth. You begin choosing partners from clarity instead of hunger. That shift alone changes the entire quality of your love life. 34. If you can reach a place where being single feels emotionally neutral, not euphoric, not miserable, you've achieved something powerful. Neutrality means your self-worth is no longer swinging based on your relationship status. From this grounded place, you can want love without needing it to survive. Psychological research consistently shows that people who approach relationships from stability, from more secure bonds, this is not about lowering desire, it's about removing desperation. 35. One day, when you look back, you may realize that there's a period of being single with an empty space between relationships, but a formative chapter. It taught you how to sit with yourself, how to listen to your emotions, and how to build a life that doesn't collapse without romantic validation. When love eventually enters that life, it won't define you, it will complement you, and that's the kind of love that lasts. Thank you so much for watching till the end. Take care.